So, hey everyone, I wanted to also create a video that also talks a little about Shirley Jackson's short story, The Lottery, right? And one of the reasons why I use The Lottery is because I think, again, mythically, we can link it to Ursula Le Guin's The Short Story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Amelia's. And while they're very different stories, I think thematically they carry some similar themes. So if we look at The Lottery, again, we know that The Lottery is set in a small town, right? It's got about 300 people in this small town. And we know that every year the townspeople get together to perform the annual lottery. And the people at the start of the story are so excited, right? They're so fired up because here is the lottery. It happens every year, and everyone is excited, including those young kids, right? And everyone basically goes to the town square. And notice there are two people that perform the lottery, right? It's Mr. Summers and Mr. Graves. And notice they come out and they bring a big black box. And basically everyone reaches into the black box. And the winner of the lottery, I think, gets the ticket with a little dot on it, right? And notice the two names are really important as you read the story, because Mr. Summers and Mr. Graves. And notice it does tell us something about the mentality of the town, because there's a certain order it goes in. The first people are the male figures. And then notice the second figure are the boys, because notice then the last figure are the women, because there's a boy that comes up and picks a ticket, and one of the parents says, "Hey, it's always good to have a man do a boy do a man's job," right? So it tells us that this society is very male dominated. And notice as everyone is picking up a ticket, everyone is excited. They're really fired up for who's going to win the lottery. And then notice at the end of the story, it's Tess Hutchins. She actually picks the lottery, right? And when she picks up the lottery, she's the winner. And every once in a while, students think, "Oh my God, the winner of the lottery, is going to win $1 million, or they're going to be happy." But notice when she gets the ticket, she doesn't say she's excited. She says it wasn't fair. But notice when you win the lottery, you get stoned to death. That people pick up rocks and they start hucking at you. And notice there's one family member who picks up a really big rock. It's like they pick up this big rock, my back almost goes out, right? But if you win the lottery, you get stoned to death. And so I think the ending sometimes kind of shocks students, right? Because who would have a lottery where the winner gets stoned to death? And there's a variety of reasons why Shirley Jackson kind of wrote this story, right? Notice that the story is set in the 1940s, and it's set right after World War II, right? And so one argument about the story is that it's really set about tradition, and how once something gets established in tradition, it's hard to change that tradition, right? So people have always been doing the lottery, but no one actually critically thinks and says, why do they do the lottery, or what's the purpose of the lottery? They've just kind of been blindly doing it. And notice that there's here that other towns are changing the lottery. In fact, one of the characters actually says in the story, "Hey, I can't believe them young folks, they're changing the lottery, because if we give up the lottery, might as well go back to living in caves," which is rather ironic, because only a caveman would come up with an idea of creating a lottery where you get stoned to death. Right, but there does become kind of a lack of critical thinking in the story. Why is the lottery happening? And then notice the box, because it's a black box, it could symbolize death. But notice the black box is falling apart. It's crumbling, which really kind of suggests that the tradition is either dying out, or people have forgotten why the lottery happened in the first place, right? And notice the two names, right, are really ironic. Summers and Graves, and they're old men. Notice the irony, because, hey, if you have someone whose name is Mr. Summers, well, summer is a symbol of life, and here you have a poem that's about death. And Mr. Graves, well, where do you die when you go? You die and you end up in a grave. So their names can have some sort of symbolism. Some people think the lottery might be done as a sacrifice to the gods. Some people make the sacrifice to the harvest. But I always thought that the lottery itself was kind of rigged because I thought there was a way that Summer and Graves could kind of get out of having to take a ticket and be part of the lottery. In many ways, that the lottery also, if we mythically might compare it to something like the Hunger Games, it's very similar to the opening of the Hunger Games, where people are chosen to go fight in the Hunger Games. So there's all sorts of really interesting things that the lottery deals with. As I mentioned, right, notice one of the arguments that was written is because in World War II, while the men were off fighting, the women started entering the workforce, and then when they returned back, the soldiers returned back, the women were expected to go back into their traditional roles. So there's an argument that Jackson was arguing that this was a sort of a questioning of tradition. And the interesting thing about this story is when this story was originally published in the New Yorker, and it kind of got two different reactions. The first reaction is that people were so outraged they canceled their subscription to the New Yorker. But then there were people who wrote the New Yorker and they thought the lottery was real and they wanted to know where the lottery was held because they wanted to go watch it. And so that really says that a theme that might be dealt with is kind of dealing with the cycle and nature of violence in mankind. What I hope is this kind of lecture kind of helps you understand the lottery, kind of appreciate it, and can kind of understand some of the themes that goes on to it. And then I just want you to think, how might we mythically compare this story to The Ones Who Walk Away from Amelia's?